Are you ready?
Pokemon is a game that has a pretty wide fan base, spanning from the casual
Who is this guy?
to the downright determined.
We are on run number 1 of our Pokemon Sun Nuzlocke. And now, deep down, you're probably thinking, well, John, that's just not true. You're on 27. We know you're on 27. Hear me out.
Whether you only play one of the games, build the most optimal team for competitive battling, spam the reset button until the starter sparkles, play the different fan games, or even just watch others play to see the game for yourself, everyone seems to have their favorites and their opinions of the game. I, for a long time, have seen these different views and felt like having something to say about it, but never sat down and wrote my thoughts out in the open in a meaningful way. I finally sat myself down and took time to compile the things I've heard, and I'd like to share what I think. I feel to show where my head is at. I gotta share my experience and where I am with all the games. My first exposure was with Fire Red and Emerald. They were gifts from my older brother, and had it not been for my family above me being pretty on top of current video games, I might have never had a game to put at the forefront of my attention. I then received a Nintendo DS at the age of 6 from my oldest brother, along with a copy of Pokemon Diamond. From then on, I felt like this was the game series for me, and in a lot of ways it really was. As I got older, I saw the releases of games, usually coinciding with my birthday. I got Black 2 on pre-order, and even this year, Scarlet and Violet released during my birthday week, so hopefully they'll be as good as I review them. Just like with all the previous games, I've been super excited and came in at release day to enjoy each game in a different way each time. I even was able to convince 2 of my closest friends to join the Pokemon fandom, with one other at least aware of it, but I'm not so conclusive on how he would feel to play it. But obviously I'm not the only one with opinions. Let me know about yours in the comments below, what kind of style you play in, and let's get on with the video. I wanted to tackle this one first as I feel like this one is the most heard. It's the most popular to repeat in memes and among the forums and the Reddits. This sort of opinion got very popularized by the prep and release of Sword and Shield, but I like to think it got started at the end of Gen 5, as some crowds would bring to the table how lazy an ice cream cone, a couple of gears, and just a bowl were for this quintessential inclusion to the series. At around this time was when the original announcement for X and Y came out, and also how they shared that they were going to be creating one set of models of animations that they would use to streamline the process of creating and including Pokemon. With that came a lot of changes that I could understand why someone would see a factor of being lazy. A lot of Pokemon lost their lively animation from the home consoles battlers, such as Battle Revolution or Coliseum, in place of some static poses and others gliding in the air forever for X and Y's battle gimmick Sky Battles, forcing only Pokemon who were considered to be floating above the ground to be your team, while the rest stayed and watched it with you. And you can tell the developers realized what they'd done when Sky Encounters and Auras let any Pokemon fight, and the starter and the regional bird for the next games are immediately bipedal instead of playing How Long Can I Stay in the Air? I can say, however, that it gives them a sense of character that stayed constant for the 3DS games. If reception had been any different, I could have seen dive battles being up Sun and Moon's unique take on Pokemon battles. It's pretty safe to say no one loves Sky Battles, but the idea of seeing some of these birds we've grown up with having a battle exclusively in the air seems rad on paper, but that's besides the point. That step started a conversation that led us to where we are now. First, the models of older Pokemon being mostly static, save for a few, then the national dex not physically existing in Sun and Moon, to Dexit, with Pokemon letting us know that they will no longer be providing every Pokemon to each and every new release. I remember hashtag bring back national dex with a bunch of different Pokemon who weren't making it in, more so when the DLC rolled around, as their final remainder were confirmed to be home only. And there are things in that I can and can't agree with, so I'm going to address them in a reverse order to try to remedy why, as a company, they chose to do this. Not including Pokemon in a main series game is a tough conversation to have because in the end, regardless of how each person feels, someone's favorite is going to be locked away behind a wall deeming, only these Pokemon are reasonable enough to be in the newest title. That's totally fair. Whether you can play competitively or just a returning player, not having full access is not what someone would want. With that, however, I must point out some things that are usually pretty clear. For one, team size. As always, 6 Pokemon are allowed on a given team at a time. And if you play this story anything like me, the amount of Pokemon who fit in the consistent slots are 6. Maybe 8 if you can't really decide who or what you want to use, or maybe you want to use something that appears later in the game, but realistically, you get exactly what you want and that's it. 6 out of the 923 Pokemon that exist currently. To try to visualize how overwhelming that might be to a casual player, I'll use a metaphor I'm a fan of: food. If you were to make every Pokemon into an individual slice of pizza and took one box of 8 slices to account for the team and 2 backup members, there would still be 114 boxes of pizza to go around. Even if you only did it by evolution line, not including forms or genders, it totals to 549 slices, which is still
69 total boxes, which is too much pizza for one person.
Being that generous, the traditional crowd still has way too many choices, and that is the main target and priority after all. Some dumb kid who loves just Pikachu and has to only use him every single time. I could listen to someone all day say how dumb it is that not every Pokemon is included when their tagline is "gotta catch 'em all." Personally, I have never minded, as I usually grab the first 6 that speak their mind to me, but as I've gotten older, I've gathered why I'd want to use an unincluded Pokemon over a Pokemon that's included with more strategically focused Pokemon, but I'm part of the crowd that keeps the ones I became friends with, and then once they're transferred, I reset the game to kind of enjoy those Pokemon all over again. The only games where I've never really finished are remakes and reruns I kind of fell out of for shiny hunting purposes, or just a different game at the time pulled me out of playing it, but at the end of the day, it's not our choice to say who stays or who gets to go. Graphics are an interesting thing to talk about when it comes to Pokemon because personally the difference between artistic direction and graphics don't often go hand in hand in these conversations. While it is easy to look at a tree and laugh uncontrollably with how fake it looks and how I've seen better trees in PS2 games, the whole thing kind of feels pointless. It's quite different to want real graphics in a game based off the real world over a game that feels like it comes out of a Saturday morning cartoon. For example, let's say you wanted to have realistic looking stuff in Splatoon. That sort of thing makes sense as the world is supposed to be what happened after humanity ruined itself. A world originally ours now converted to a wasteland that just happens to be a bunch of K-pop loving squidfolk doing water blaster fights for political reasons. But when you say you want Pokemon to look realistic, it is just a different beast to determine what you mean for art direction. If you want everything but the Pokemon to look real, I feel like it just makes it look like a very uncanny experience. I could not seriously handle a game that looks like the new Modern Warfare 2, but Oshawott still looks like he has goofy walks proudly saying his name. It's a personal reason why I'm so turned off to the new Sonic game. It looks like you put Sonic into Halo Infinite. If he had his movie design, I could gauge it, but it's still such a clash of styles that I don't want it. Personally, I much prefer how Scarlet and Violet are doing it, where the world matches the characters in the Pokemon, and the looks just feel more vibrant and detailed with small touches of shininess of metals and indentations of scales. But ultimately, the designs are supposed to feel simple and drawn. I took the most infamous image I've seen from people trashing Sword and Shield's art style and put it through a manga filter, and touched it up so the main parts, the land, the character, and the tree, were the only parts viewed. To me, it looks like the art style matches its graphics perfectly. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are a very different story. I believe these games are very telling that ILCA wanted to be safe. We cannot truly determine the particular reasons these games were made as they were, but personally, I honestly agree with the motions that they probably rushed and had to make it this way, as the Pokemon Company tends to be very selfish with their baby, only recently branching out to their successes to different companies to alternating results. ILCA probably decided on a direct remake, barring some new features as Pal Park could not return, as well as making more Pokemon accessible during the main story by adding wild areas to the underground, because it just seemed like the safe option. Of course Game Freak was lazy about it. They weren't in charge of it. Legends Arceus was the plan, and BDSP were just fortunate byproducts of trusting a new company with honorable remakes. And honestly, they're not that bad. Sure, they were super glitchy when it came out, but that's not even a big deal. Had they not been full-on remakes in the style of like Sword and Shield, I personally feel like we would not have gotten to see the Void glitch come back, and that's super funny that somehow both companies trying to make Diamond and Pearl somehow found a way to make an out-of-bounds glitch in the same area, and it works almost exactly the same. I honestly can't even be mad.
This guy stinks!
I kind of touched on this earlier by going over how there are just too many Pokemon and that it is just not reasonable to comply with every Pokemon coming back, but that is not really the bottom line. Every battle feature must come back, with every Pokemon I must use. As of Scarlet and Violet, we would have 4 main battle-oriented gimmicks, 5 if you count styles from Legends Arceus. Mega Evolution, Z moves, or Z moves if you are an American, Dynamaxing, and Terastallizing. All very interesting gimmicks in their own right, but personally mingle way too much together that I just don't feel it would be very enjoyable. You don't need to take my word for it, however. There are plenty of impressive ROM hacks that have made this reality possible, as well as Pokemon Showdown, but we'll focus on just one ROM hack for now, as those most parallel the real games in terms of how I feel the games would play if fans were in charge. Pokemon Radical Red is a difficulty hack of Fire Red respectively, running on this engine called Skelly's Complete Fire Red Upgrade. It turns all the AI up and brings all Pokemon and gimmicks that were available as a Sword and Shield into Fire Red. Not only that, the game has many features that fall under the same quality of life that parallels some of the mainline features. Would I recommend the game? Yes, but no. I would say that if you are a competitive Pokemon player, this is definitely a great hack for you. It is not a game for me, and I can kind of explain why. I would say that if you are a competitive Pokemon player, this is one of the best, if not the best, Pokemon ROM hacks that exists. It has every feature, barring that you don't instantly start off with Z moves and the Mega Ring, but you do get to Dynamax in specific designated areas for Dynamax raids. Which, yes, they have Dynamax raids. I could not believe that it was actually in a ROM hack like this. But it's just not for me, and it's probably not for a lot of people. And while it's got some really cool features and difficulty options, even the difficulty options couldn't save me from putting down the game. First of all, there are ways to get 100% of Pokemon, barring certain legendaries that would make the game way too easy, but other than that, there is a way to get 100% of the Pokemon. They make Hisuian Pokemon exclusive to eggs, but you kind of have to save scum if you want to get the ones that you want. Also, it does have real-time mode, since there is a day and night cycle, but if you talk to the right trainer, if you answer his riddles, you get to change time to whatever you want, such as if you were playing on a 3DS for some reason like I was. There's also some other things, like there's an NPC who gives you the Pokevile, which is basically the instant Pokemon Center that like Temtem have, other games that try to do the monster collecting thing, but the only way that you're able to get it is if you battle the school trainer with set Pokemon, and they have 6 level 100 Shedinja, while you only get to choose 3 level 5 Pokemon. There's nothing inherently wrong with any of these, it's just not meant for a casual audience. I personally like to play with teams that I like, but difficulty hacks feel like the bane of that, especially with the battle that I gave up on, making me feel like I'd not use them to continue trying the ROM hack. The trainer is meant to be a Nuzlocke killer. It's meant to make you choose Pokemon that are competitive over choosing Pokemon that you like. This is not to say that it's not well made. I love what they have done with this game, and it's pretty crazy the fact that all of this stuff can fit inside of Fire Red. But in terms of making it official, having these things in the game as of right now, it's never gonna happen. Most of the other games that have all the Pokemon don't really know how to do it. It either has a gimmick in front of it like an Emerald Rogue, which is like a roguelike version of Pokemon Emerald, or do not flesh it out as well, making it so you never see any fun, interesting Pokemon until your team is already established. Or it's just like every starter on Route 1, so you never get to use anything that isn't just Cinderace, Sceptile, Samurott until like the 7th badge. In regards to every Pokemon coming back, I see them keeping their word indefinitely, possibly making a battle sim using the Pokemon Home data, but other than that, I think keeping the Mons fresh makes the new Mons more interesting, and it kind of feels like the Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden list for the competitive scene.
Garbodor remains goated.
I mean, heaven forbid we see another VGC bracket spearheaded by Zacian for a hot minute. At least give Wolfie Glick an opportunity to make a TikTok explaining how he tricked a Cyclizar into not using Shed Tail on his Belly Drum Belly Bolt. This one kind of falls into 2 tables for me, as with the advent of the Legends games, they are not adverse to trying to make a mature title, but I don't see this as the actual desired mature title Pokemon fans claim to want. I feel like whenever I hear someone asking for a mature Pokemon game, it either falls into something with a dating sim, or something gritty or more forward-driven with how the evil team is, and the relationships in the game, etc. I feel Pokemon as it currently handles itself is too whimsical for anything more mature than its main ideals. I understand that the game has had its fair share of weird, creepy, or just off Pokédex entries, but I could not take them seriously, especially where if they were to make the game resemble the sinister nature of the Dex entries, I wouldn't feel right, especially when in other games I've been able to feed them cupcakes to make them my friend. All the realism loses its meaning to me. That is even to say that Pokemon's plots are in their own ways very mature, but we're just so quick to slam the A button that we kind of just act as if there's no sense of a lesson or morality that you can gain from them. Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum tell you a story about a region set in nostalgia and innovation. A region with a higher religious feel, where your biggest obstacle is someone trying to remove the past to create a future that fits in their hand. A man in an environment of history making his mark. Sword and Shield talk about the importance of having the right answer when it comes to history, and how muddled things can get from word of mouth and assumption can cause even the greatest of calamities. It also tackles corporatism and how the idea of trying to do something dangerous and difficult just to save $1 can have inverse effects. X and Y speak on how everyone plays a crucial role in a puzzle that is life. And by idolizing being the only ones to inhabit the earth, even to the point that you'd rather take the world and destroy it than to share it, it only leads to a lonely and painful demise. Sun and Moon tackle the beauty and the dangers of the unknown. How on one hand, the idea that there's something more can be awe-inspiring, while still understanding there's no problem enjoying the moment and those around you. Whereas the obsession can be family destroying and lead to irrational thinking. When we look at these, however, from the perspective of someone who just wants to get to the post-game for legendaries, or look at how bad this tree looks, or even that the in-game tutorial is too long, I just want to pick my starter, we kind of miss what the writer's intentions are, and how mature these topics really sit. We just fall into this habit of seeing, oh, the bad guy of the month wants to find the box art to end the world, and we kind of just drone through the game so we can get the shiny charm or look at the hint that tells us where the next game in the series is. But I urge you to just look a bit closer on this next game, especially when we have 3 different main quests that we can go into. Try to see what you can gather. Look at the story Game Freak is laying out for us, and just try to understand what you can learn from it. Pokemon is an interesting franchise that has amassed a very different fans of all ages to this monster collecting RPG. Regardless of how you feel about any of these conversations, it's very clear that everyone has their favorite game, their favorite Pokemon, so on and so forth. And we're all human, and a lot of how we interpret these things is subjective to your point of view, so I hope I have given you some frame of reference to where I come from. At the end of the day, if you have made it this far into the video, I really appreciate you and hope you like my video. I know my opinion may be different to yours, and if it is, I'd enjoy seeing your comments on what you personally view. Also, as this is more of a response to others' opinions, rather than some of my own bold takes, if you'd like to see a follow-up where I respond to your comments, and even serve up some of my own spicy takes, I'd be more than appreciative if you liked the video, subscribed, and possibly hit the bell to let YouTube know you actually want to subscribe. At the time of writing this script, Scarlet and Violet still have not been released, but I do hope to do some sort of content on it, especially if it isn't scripted. I like scripted videos, but I prefer recording with friends. Especially thanks to the real multiplayer, I might get the chance to. I don't have enough subscribers to have an ad, but I got some folks I think you'd like watching. Anyways, my name is Aaron, and I'll see you in the next match of Quickplay.
Mm.